Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube. And something really weird recently happened at the Denver International Airport. So by now most people are familiar with the Denver International Airport murals. This is a kind of a subject we cover a lot here on this channel. It's the occult realization happening all around the world right now, the true occult nature of our reality fully being revealed to us. We realize that we're literally dealing with so-called Illuminati, or very high-level Freemasons. Another term you can use are witches, even warlocks, high-level Satanists. Part of lesser magic is them telling us what they're going to do before they do it. Another example of what we're talking about here could be the Georgia Guidestones. Some people call this the 10 Commandments of the New World Order, or the 10 Commandments of the Antichrist. There are occult mysteries all around the building of these Georgia Guidestones, not just in the words, but also in the building and in the creation itself. And there are many mysteries all around the Denver International Airport, also in the way it was built. The infrastructure itself, even a view from above, you can see the Nazi swastika. You have Lucifer, very interesting story there with Lucifer. And right after the artist had completed the creation of Lucifer, Lucifer actually fell on the artist and killed him. So there's your blood sacrifice. Egyptian fallen angel symbolism at the Denver International Airport, all of the murals and all the fascinating breakdowns that people have had over the years of what's really going on in those pictures. So there's a lot happening at the Denver International Airport as far as the so-called Illuminati goes, or high-level Masons, witchcraft. And then of course we have this right here, which proves that the Masons really are behind the creation of the Denver International Airport. I want to show you a news story here in a second. Before I do, I wanted to show you this because a lot of these stories will come out in the mainstream and they're coded. By that I mean oftentimes there's interesting numerology taking place in there. Even right here you can see when the Denver International Airport was established, March 19th, 1994. You add all the numbers together, you have the 19 and the 1994 together and you get a 33. And then you have March, of course, which is the 3. So you have the 333. So these occultists, these pagans, these Satanists, these Illuminati, whatever term you want to put, but again I'm talking about the controllers, the shadow controllers. They worship numbers as well. They literally worship science and math underlying science. They believe that numbers possess inherent power all their own. The Satanists always place great power in numbers, especially the black magic Satanist. These groups also believe that a carefully planned event must be carried out according to the correct numbers, or it may not be successful. So they'll go to great lengths to make an event occur according to the correct numbers. There's interesting studies that have been done on the 9/11 attacks and the connection with the number 11 all throughout. Not just in the obvious 9/11 on the date, but multiple other circumstances where the number 11 was very important on that day. A few other examples of the occultists using numbers throughout history, but when the Illuminati ended the First World War, or the Shadow Controllers ended the First World War, they had just successfully completed the First War of Albert Pike's occult plan to produce Antichrist. And if you're not familiar with that, you should look up Albert Pike and the 3 World Wars and see what that's all about. So they deliberately ended the war, on the 11th month, November, the 11th day, at the 11th hour. The signing of the Armistice Agreement was thus undergirded by 3 11s. When President Kennedy was assassinated, he was killed according to the occult number signature of 11. He was killed in the 11th month, on the 22nd day, and on the 33rd parallel. He was also killed in the Masonic Dealey Plaza, the most powerful secret society in the world today, to whom the number 11 is extremely important. There's a lot of interesting implications between the number 11 and the so-called Antichrist. In Daniel chapter 7 verse 8 says, I considered the 10 horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, a little horn. The Antichrist. Many Bible scholars have theorized that the 11th horn is the Antichrist itself. Again, 11. This right here is Solomon's signet ring with seal diagram. It's also called Isis Unveiled. We're talking about the goddess Isis here. And when talking about King Solomon, many people believe that he was the world's first Freemason. Now these are not your grandpappy's Freemasons from the small towns throughout America and other countries. These are the Freemasons that are truly working towards a one world order system. They're truly trying to set the foundation for a one world ruler, aka an Antichrist. So if you notice the uneven hexagram and the numbers 333 placed at different points on the seal, you gotta wonder what's the occult fascination with the number 33 and its extension 333. But once you understand the belief Satanists have about this number, you'll understand certain events in history more completely. For example, when Adolf Hitler planned his own suicide, he decided to shoot himself on April 30th, 1945 at precisely 3:30 p.m., thus setting up a 333, by which the deal was done. He believed that this 333 would allow him to pass quickly through the reincarnation cycle so he could come back to Earth as the real, historic Antichrist. Elizabeth Van Buren wrote a book called The Secret of the Illuminati, and in this book she openly reveals Luciferian thought and values. She says 33 appears to be the most mysterious of numbers. It is found over and over again in the stories of the Bible and elsewhere. Jesus Christ was 33 when he was crucified. The first Temple of Solomon stood for 33 years before being pillaged. And there are 33 symbols of the Masonic order, and one of their symbols depicts a double-headed eagle crowned with an equilateral triangle, and inside of this is the number 33. She says that in the Vishnu Purana, book number 1, it states these 33 divinities exist age after age, and their appearance and disappearance is the same number as the sun sets and rises again. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it speaks of the 33 heavens ruled over by Indra, and the 33 ruled over by Mara. The Temple of Solomon was a cube, measuring 33 1/3 feet. We can even turn to the Bible and read in 1 Chronicles that David reigned over all of Israel, and the time that he reigned over Israel was 40 years. 7 years he reigned in Hebron, and 33 years he reigned in Jerusalem. Students of numerology are well aware that numbers affect a person's life. One's name, place, and time of birth all have an influence on one's physical, mental, and spiritual being. Each letter as a number has a certain vibratory effect, so the picture produced by the various combinations gives an understanding of the character, the karma, and the potentialities of that particular person. In spiritual numerology, the numbers 11, 22, and 33 are the three, quote, master numbers, the highest being 33. So there are many that follow these occult religions and theories and philosophies that believe the number 333 speaks of death, resurrection, and ascension perfectly. It's also really interesting knowing what you know now, looking up some of the celebrities or well-known figures out there that died at the age of 33. This is just a few. There's quite a few out there. It even reminded me of this story here from just a little while back of Morgan Freeman's granddaughter dead at the age of 33. I remember at the time every news story was running her age. It was like, hey, Morgan Freeman's granddaughter dead at 33. Especially when we find out that not only was she killed at the age of 33, but apparently she was killed during an exorcism. So yet another occult connection beyond just the number 33. I wanted to give you some of that background just so you can see some of these stories through different eyes. Because I see this kind of stuff all the time myself. Many of these news stories come out that are coded. There's coded messages within. Now, oftentimes, I do believe these are messages between the elites. And then in other cases, I believe a lot of these stories come out, these mainstream stories, and that they're spiritual stories taking place. They're spiritual messages just under the surface. So I recently saw this story, Colorado Mystery, What Caused Deadly School Bus Crash at the Denver International Airport. So anytime I'll see a story out there that's connected with the Denver International Airport, and knowing what I know about the occult connections there, I'm going to be interested. So I checked this out. I found a few things I thought were interesting. So let's check this story out here. The doomed driver of a school bus packed with Colorado high school football players that crashed at Denver International Airport was going 30 to 40 miles per hour when she slammed directly into a concrete pillar. So what's really important to understand here is this actually happened on 9/11. 2016. And we already realized that Denver International Airport is filled with all kinds of occult mysteries. I'm also one of the people that believe that 9/11 was a huge satanic ritual, a mass so-called Illuminati ritual, if you will. So isn't it interesting that we have this school bus filled with kids that crashes directly into a pillar at the Denver International Airport on 9/11? Continuing, the speed limit on that stretch of roadway is around 15 miles per hour. It's not clear why she was there in the first place. So think about that. Why was she there in the first place? The bus driver took a left to return to the terminal loop instead of making the right to leave the airport. Nobody can tell me why the bus driver made that turn. Then the driver drove straight off the roadway into the pillar. Quite frankly, there is a big mystery there. I think so too, but is it really a mystery? Again, I know not everybody sees things through spiritual eyes. I've covered these kind of stories multiple times here on my channel, and I do believe that there are spiritual messages taking place in a lot of these mainstream stories, crime stories, accidents, whatever. Not all of them, but some. I certainly think that this right here is the case. I mean, the police that were there are even saying that this right here is a mystery. You know, she shouldn't have done this. She shouldn't have driven this way. It makes no sense. So what's the explanation? You know, most people don't even care to think about this stuff, really, and I realize that. But there are going to be a lot of people out there that just say, oh, maybe she just went crazy, right? She just went crazy. All of a sudden, she went crazy. Now, see, I don't think that. I don't think, at least in this case, it was someone just going crazy and just decided to just rage, you know, for whatever reason. Now, certainly there are going to be cases all around the world where things like this happen, and, you know, maybe the person fell asleep, they were on some kind of narcotics, maybe they were on something prescribed they were supposed to be on, just knocked them out for whatever reason. And we're looking for confirmations, right, and connections. So again, we've already established we have plenty of occult connections here. This happened on 9/11. The bus crashed into a pillar, just like on 9/11 the planes crashed into the pillars, right? We talked with more than 15 people who were on the bus. All of them said it seemed to be a normal trip until they started feeling the bumps when the bus went off the roadway. There was no statements on the bus like, hey, where are you going? So what did cause the deadly school bus crash at Denver International Airport? Me personally, I believe this is some kind of spiritual coding. These are spiritual messages. Once again, at a very occult-rich place, the Denver International Airport, on 9/11, it's connected to the higher-level Masons, as far as I'm concerned, high-level sacrifice. So speaking of murals and decoding these occult messages, these hidden messages before our very eyes, another really interesting set of murals are up at the Bank of America, and this is from Charlotte, North Carolina. I've done a few breakdowns on these. A lot of other people have done breakdowns on these as well. These are absolutely fascinating as far as I'm concerned. Again, the occult nature of all these, the occult mysteries they're putting right before our very eyes. But I bring this up, of course, because the murals of the Denver International Airport, just another example of this. And again, you'll find this in other places all over the world as well. Check this out. For me, this is about as random and weird as it can get. Especially coming from Bank of America, right? Huge Bank of America. Bank of America says there's a 20 to 50% chance we're inside the Matrix and reality is just a simulation. It's a major corporation saying this, Big Bank of America. In a note to clients on Tuesday, Bank of America Merrill Lynch said there's a 20 to 50% chance that we're living in the Matrix, meaning that the world we experience as real is actually just a simulation. So here's another story. It's the one I wanted to give you an example of right here, as there's more playing out in the news story than what we're being told. This happened just a few days ago during the Mid-Autumn Festival, and this is in China, a town called Fujian. It's a giant moon balloon got loose and started rolling around through the city streets, going over cars and going over people. And I highly suggest you look up this footage. It's a trip. It looks like something out of a horror movie. This enormous moon is rolling around through the city streets, going over people, crushing cars, not actually crushing cars, but going over cars, and the whole thing. And it's just going on its own for quite a while. So here's the story. Watch. Moon attacks. Giant moon balloon attacks Chinese city. A gigantic, slightly deflated moon balloon rolled and bounced its way over cars and motorbikes in Fuzhou, China on Wednesday, after winds from an approaching typhoon set the celestial body loose. Videos taken by amused and/or frightened motorists show the blob-like moon, which appears at least 2 lanes wide, subsuming entire cars and other vehicles as it blows over highways and intersections. In one moment that seems straight out of a low-budget monster movie, the floppy gray balloon rolls menacingly towards a motorbike driver who, seemingly froze in fear, only moves out of the way at the last possible second. And that was it. That's most of the reporting on this incident. That's it. It was kind of comical the way they're putting it out there. Oh, this big moon got loose and ran over some people. Looked like something out of a movie. It was funny and scary at the same time. Now, again, I want to show you how there's more going on beyond this story than just what they're showing us. But what's most important about this is looking at the history of it. This is moon worship. The ancient Chinese believed in rejuvenation being associated with the moon and water, and connected this concept to the menstruation of women, calling it monthly water. They have an ancient fable saying the sun and moon are a couple and the stars are their children, and when the moon is pregnant it becomes round, and then becomes crescent after giving birth to the child. So going back to the very beginning of this festival, you find out that these beliefs made it popular among women to worship and even give offerings, sacrifices, and do rituals for the moon on this evening. In some areas of China, there are still customs in which men worship the moon and the women offer sacrifices to the gods. So now, understanding the history of the rituals and sacrifices that used to go towards the moon, we see this whole situation right here with this moon balloon crushing people. We see this in a whole new set of eyes. Spiritually or even metaphorically now, we're seeing the moon actually coming for its sacrifice, the moon taking its own sacrifices. And I'll leave you with this last story here, which falls right in line with everything we're talking about. The Angel of the World Trade Center. Eerie photograph appears to show angelic apparition hovering in the beams of 9/11 tribute in light. Photographer Rich McCormick captured an angelic image at the Tribute in Light memorial lights at the 9/11 site last week. I'm not sure if you've seen these or not yet, but these are pretty fascinating pictures. Check that one out right there. Let's see if we can't get a closer view. Here's a closer shot. And here's one even closer. And of course, this man has been interviewed time and time again, and he states emphatically that this is not photoshopped. He didn't create this. It's no kind of a hoax or anything, that he actually captured this image on camera. So I'll leave you with that, folks. Very interesting times. Again, I certainly believe the veil is lifting. I do believe that not every story, but in a lot of these stories, there's a lot more going on just under the surface. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my observations. Thanks for checking out the video. Take care out there, guys, and I'll talk to you real soon.